Okay, welcome tonight for our first Kid Talk. Tonight we're going to be talking about anxiety in your children and also what that looks like for you as a parent and how you can help manage your emotions and help your children manage their emotions. My name is Betsy Jackson. I am a licensed mental health counselor and a play therapist. And I also have the privilege of overseeing the counseling center here at Faith Assembly. So let's just jump into our big emotion topic. Considering that a lot of anxiety is seen in adults, we can assume that our children are experiencing a lot of the same thing. And it has been mentioned that we see kids just displaying behavioral problems, and oftentimes it is anxiety-based. There is some statistics that anxiety has increased over the past 10 to 20 years. And we can assume a lot of reasons for that, right? Our lives have increased. Two parents working, single parent homes. There's a lot of reasons that our schedules are so busy and so hectic. So we can assume that if our anxiety is increasing, so are our children's anxiety levels. So let's first look at what is causing an anxious versus restful state. An anxious state can be caused by constant stimulation and multitasking. It is actually harming our ability to learn and store information when we are constantly busy and moving from task to task. I just wonder how often you're handing your child an electronic device throughout the day. Depending on their age, it's probably different. It probably varies. But as you start to notice, just take time to notice how often you give your kiddo something electronic to play with. And notice also how often you're using electronics. Right now, my phone will give me a weekly report of how often I'm on the phone and using it for any reason. And it'll tell me how often I'm on social media. And fortunately, it's pretty rare because I'm doing so many other things. But a lot of times we can just get sucked into that social media scrolling, and it can create just no time to rest and to think because we're just moving. We're moving through material and information. And our kids are doing the exact same thing. They're just flipping through information, or they're watching a video and then a commercial onto another video. And if they get bored of it, they move to a different video altogether. So there's a lot of stimulation that's happening in our culture that is actually creating a level of anxiety in and of itself. Is there any downtime in your schedule? Is there any downtime in your child's schedule? Do they have time to just play? Do they have time to just draw or relax? And not relaxing with a screen in front of them, but literal mental relaxation. Are they getting that chance? And are you joining in with them? So let's look at a restful state of mind. Our brains literally require rest and reflection in order to sort through information and to form habits. We have to do something over and over again to form a habit. But we also have to have time to think through that and to restfully consider what is the next step, what is the next thing we're doing. Once we're able to repeat a behavior numerous times with a restful mind, then it becomes automatic. It becomes easy. And when we think of our kiddos, we want things for them to become automatic so they're not always having to problem solve because our brains really aren't ready at the younger elementary age. So also, a restful state is a calm reflection and review required to process information and experiences. Some ways that we can do that is art, just simply coloring or painting, allowing music to be in the home and just quiet and not being active doing other things. It allows our brains to process information and to calm down. Even playing music is a really helpful way for kids to be able to rest and stay focused. Learning how to play musical instruments is a good way to enter into a restful state. Taking a break and stretching, getting moving. I know that almost sounds counterintuitive. If we're resting, then how are we moving? But that deep breathing that comes with running or riding your bicycle, swinging, those movements are actually helpful for our bodies and our brains. It gives it time to just relax, and it's not having to think and stress and worry about what's coming next, but it's just allowing that information to process. If something is often causing your child to melt down, I really challenge you to consider if it's really important for your schedule. Obviously, sometimes they melt down before school, and school is important for your life. It meets your values. But if it is something that isn't important, try just setting it aside for a while. Try it later in their life and in their development, because possibly they're not mature enough, and hopefully you won't take that offensively and defensively about your child wanting them to be mature. But every child has to grow and develop at a different rate. And so if we want to be respectful of their growth process, then we have to see if something is causing them to have emotional meltdowns, it may not be the right time for them. Again, if it's something critical that you can't avoid, then there are ways to help them manage their feelings. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. Okay, so let's look at what anxiety truly is and some of the diagnoses that there are for anxiety in children. So statistics show that 7% of children aged 3 to 17 have diagnosed anxiety. And that may sound like a small number, 7%. That's fewer than 1 in 10 kids. But in the grand scheme of things, there's 4.4 million children in America that are diagnosed with anxiety. That isn't counting all of the kids that never walk into a doctor's office or a therapist's office to be diagnosed, or a psychologist's office. So there are a lot of kids that are struggling with fears, panic, anxiety, meltdowns, and then there are other diagnoses as well. The depression and ADHD are really common diagnoses in American kids too. So for anxiety diagnoses that occur with our kids: separation anxiety, phobia, a social phobia, and generalized anxiety. And let me just clarify when it becomes a disorder. It is natural for all kids at some point in their lives to fear separation. And it could be at different times based on what's happened in their lives, based on what's going on, based on their developmental stage. So it's not a disorder until it's causing significant distress at home and in a social setting. So if it's just social settings, there might be something with that social setting that is causing them that distress. Because if they're at home and they're not feeling that separation fear, and at home they would be afraid to go to bed alone, afraid to go outside alone. Obviously you aren't sending a 2-year-old out alone, but age appropriately. So it's if you're only seeing it in one place and not both, then there's not a disorder per se. And those things can probably be taken care of through learning different ways to manage behavior, or even adjusting your schedule and adjusting sleep patterns or different things like that. Difficulties that are expressed just at school or church or other social settings can be improved by learning and practicing new social skills. So role-playing, pretend with your kids. Take time with their toys, their dolls or action figures, and kind of practice some social skills. Like, what's it going to be like when we walk into school? Let's pretend with our little dolls or whatever you want to use. You can role-play that out with them so that they can practice what it might be like to meet a new friend or to sit down with a stranger. Those things are important skills that we get to teach our kids. And that can help reduce that fear of going into a social setting. Now, the separation anxiety, again, is if they're having big emotions whenever they're having to leave a caregiver. And it's happening in every setting. A phobia is a fear of something. For example, a fear of spiders. A lot of people are afraid of spiders, cockroaches, snakes. We have a lot of fears. And it's phobic when it's affecting your life in a way that you avoid things. And if a child is avoiding something out of fear, then it's possible there's a phobia there. And if it's a social phobia, if they're avoiding all social settings or a specific social setting, perhaps they have a social phobia, and it can develop over life. And so we want to practice helping them to calm and reflect and relax, and then even to learn those social skills that will help them avoid any social phobias. A generalized anxiety is just a level of fear and anxiety and symptoms of anxiety that can happen in any setting. And it's generally a lower level of anxiety, but it's just there. So it could be stomach aches. It could be headaches. It can be avoiding something, crying when they have to be involved in things. When you're dealing with little ones, little kiddos, that's probably something to discuss with your doctor, because it could be a developmental issue. It could be a sensory issue. It may not be anxiety. So that's important to talk over with your doctor and let them help diagnose for that. Also, in older kiddos, after 6, a lot of times ADHD and anxiety mimic each other. Inability to sit still, not being able to follow through on a task. Those things can look like ADHD, but perhaps it's an anxiety. Is there a lot of stress in the lifestyle? Is there a lot of busyness? Those things can be similar, and it takes a lot of time to rule out and determine, especially if medication is coming into play. I would definitely encourage going through the process to make sure it's one or the other. Okay, so in those cases, I would strongly encourage you to, again, speak with your doctor, your pediatrician, speak with a licensed counselor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, if you're noticing those distressing symptoms in those manners. So let's move on to some ways you can handle your kiddos' big emotions. And we're going to talk about presents versus presents, gifts. Believe it or not, you are more important to your child than any gift. I know that's hard to believe when they're pointing at the TV and saying, I want that 1,000 times. Or when it's almost Christmas and they have a really long list. I'm sure that you think that presents are probably more important than you being there. But your connection is the key for your child. And I can almost guarantee you that they would rather have time with you than to be sent outside on their own or to play alone. Yes, they need that time. Yes, they need to find themselves and to be able to make some decisions, but that comes after they've connected with you, so that they venture out a little and then come back to the safety of a mom or dad. They venture out a little more, come back to the safety of mom or dad. So I have a acronym for you to help you remember, and it's MALTAs. So if you're in Central Florida, then you know that's a common beverage around here. But it's not just a beverage, it's a way to remember some ways that you can help your kids. So M stands for mention. Mention or label the emotion that you see in your child. Whatever you're seeing from them, label it, give it a name, mention it. Hey, it looks like you're sad, or you must be really happy today. Start to give them the vocabulary and language of what you see. And it teaches them the vocabulary, but also they might correct you. They might give you a whole another set of emotions that they're feeling, or they might go deeper and they'll say, yeah, I feel sad and I feel worried. And it'll give them that time to open up to you and share with you what they're really feeling. So mention their emotion, whatever you're noticing. And that means that you have to learn what your emotions are. Most adults can only name 3 emotions. And if you've seen Inside Out, you know there's at least 5. But we should be able to, research shows that we should be able to identify up to 30 emotions. I mean, can you even name more than 10? It's really hard. So it takes time to learn that yourself so that you can identify it in your children. But it's a really important part of helping them to mediate their emotions. The second letter, A, ask. Ask for the reason calmly that they're feeling that emotion and wait for the answer rather than filling in the blanks, rather than trying to explain why you think they might be feeling sad. Ask them. Say, you look like you're feeling sad. I wonder what's going on. Or can you tell me why you're feeling that way? And then wait. Let them give you what's going on with them. They may not really be able to answer, but at least you're giving them that space to think. And again, remember that reflecting and that calm brain has to be able to have time to think. 3, listen. Listen to what they have to say. Make time and choose intentionally to hear what their story is. It may not be accurate. It may not be based on reality or truth at all. How many of us have believed something was some way, and then the more information you get, you're like, yeah, that wasn't even how it went down. So and remember that, yeah, it may not be true, but don't jump on that and try to change it for them. Listen for their perspective. And if they're not verbal enough, or if they're still developing their verbal skills, then let them draw it or let them play it out with some toys to show you what happened. A lot of times those figurines are very helpful in letting a kid show what's going on in their inner world, because their language is play. Our language, yes, maybe English or Spanish or Portuguese, but ultimately their language is first play. And they can express themselves more through play than they can through words. So give them that option. And then as they're playing, look for the emotions that they're saying or showing. And if they're not ready to tell why, that's okay. Give them a little time. Let them have that space to think. And then the 4th thing is touch. Gentle touch in a comforting manner. Give them a hug. Put your arm around their shoulder. Just something to let them know you're there, that you're present, and that you care. And that gentle touch can go a long way. The next A is allow. Allow your child to figure out a solution. It's really important that we empower our kids with an ability to problem solve, because unfortunately you're not always with them. Well, maybe that's a fortunate thing. But unfortunately, you can't solve all of their problems through life, and you probably don't want to. You want to work yourself out of a job, basically, with parenting. So as you start when they're little, you can allow them some time to think through what might help. And, they may not come up with a good idea, so you can throw one out there here and there, but allow them that time. Allow them to figure out what they could do next time. And if you want, you can practice it with them. But obviously they can't go back in time. However, they can practice for the future and see what they would try to do next. And then the last thing is staying present. Stay with them. As much as you may want to run and shove them in their room and say, you just need time alone, just stay present. Stay within eyesight. I know when I was raising my daughter, my stepdaughter, there were times that I was like, you've got to go in your room until you calm down and figure this out, because you're stressing me out and I've got too much to deal with. But as she got older and I learned these skills, even as a teenager, I would just stay present. She would try to shut the door. I'd be like, no, you're going to leave it open. We're going to stay present. Okay. So, just being, obviously with a teenager, you're not going to want to do that all the time, but just staying in connection with your little ones, it's way easier than with a teenager. But it's so important that they know you're there and you're ready to listen when they're ready to talk. And that will help them to calm down. really cool thing is to celebrate their change in emotion. So you're helping them to identify that emotions change. You felt sad before, but look, you're feeling really happy now. I'm so glad to see that smile in your face. I wonder what helped you. And that helps them to reflect on, when I go and sit in color, I feel better. So maybe next time you can either remind them of that, or they might figure it out themselves. When they're feeling all kinds of crazy, that they can go color, or they can go play with Legos, or they can get a drink of water, and their emotions will change. And the more you point it out, the better they will see what they're able to do. And praise goes a whole lot further than presents. So your praise, your presence goes a lot further than gifts or rewards or bribes or tokens. They all have their place and they are all useful. But you and your encouragement, even if your kid seems to reject it, trust me, it's getting in there. So keep it up. So the next thing that we'll talk about is intentional versus busy. Are you being intentional in your life, or are you just busy and caught up with things? I know I've been guilty of being very busy and not necessarily intentional. So this is where we want to look at values and recognize that your values are the things that are important to the big picture for your child. And how this relates to anxiety is that the more structured and aware you are, and the more that you know what is important and you cut out the fat, the better off your child will be. They will be protected and secure because they know what to expect. So some values that are important, some examples are faith, honesty, diligence, trustworthiness, respect. But ultimately, if you take some time and you list your family's 5 top values, what you feel like is most important, and then you get together with your spouse if you're married, and if not, just process this with your kids. What are their top 5 personal values? And then collaborate to create that for your family. Kind of a family motto or a family value system. If you could do this as an activity, I would encourage you to first sit down, figure out, brainstorm all the values, define it down to the top 5, and then create a picture. Do some art, do something creative. It can be beautiful, it can be just wild. But create some piece of art that you can hang on the wall that lists your family's top 5 values. And then refer to them. Look at them. Let your kids refer to them. And use that as a way to reflect back to, if it doesn't meet those values, is it really important for us? Do we need to be worrying and staying busy doing all of these things if it doesn't fit those values? Another activity you could do to reflect on your values is to list your stressors, your spouse's stressors, and your child's stressors. If you have 5 kids, it's going to be a lot of time to do, but listing all of the things that cause stress. And it doesn't have to be bad stress. School is a stressor. Homework is a stressor. Putting laundry away is a stressor. It's a task, sometimes healthy, sometimes overwhelming. So list out your stressors, line them up with your values, and talk to God about it. Ask God if there is anything on your plate that needs to go, because it's not valuable to you and your family. And have a conversation with your family to see if there are things that one of you or 2 of you need to let go of, and then make those adjustments. It doesn't mean that it will be forever. If one child has to give up an activity and another child has to give up an activity, it doesn't mean that it has to be for life, but maybe right now it's not fitting in with your family values. And allow yourself to do that. Maybe you have to let go of an activity, something that you enjoy very much, but you have to let go. Or perhaps you need to bring something into your life that you value and that you've let go because you've been consumed with 2 or 3 activities for each kid. It is important that you are healthy When you get on an airplane and they say, adults, put on your oxygen mask before you help anyone else. It's because if you don't, you pass out and you're no help to anyone. And it's the same when it comes to anxiety. You have to be helping yourself first. And that may sound selfish. However, it's just wisdom to take that time to make sure that your stressors are not overwhelming. And if you're in a place where your stressors are overwhelming, look them over and start to strategize a way to eliminate stressors or to change your life so that there aren't so many stressors in your life. So now let's move on to confidence versus fear. When we have an anxious child and a kiddo that is just having meltdowns, there's a lot of fear probably. And that is an emotion that we have to address. We want to build confidence in our kiddos so that they're not overwhelmed by new experiences or new regulations, new rules. We want to give them the confidence. We don't want them to be afraid when we leave them or when they have a new caregiver. We want them to be confident that they can meet the challenge. So some ways, you'll see on the slide, quite a list. I hope it doesn't bog you down, but hopefully it will be helpful for you. But just starting off, help your child with a couple of choices. Again, empowering them to make good choices helps to build confidence. And that's ultimately what we want. We want them to be able to make a choice, even if they fail, that they've made the choice and they can own it and learn from it. Hopefully, you're learning that it's okay to make mistakes. You're learning too, right? Maybe you've never been a parent before, or maybe you failed a few times in parenting, but it's okay. Just learn from it. Just grow from it. Take time to reflect on those mistakes. But give your kids a couple of choices, 3 at the most, and age appropriate. Help them to learn. This helps them to learn self-control as well as confidence. So if your child is wanting a snack before dinner, you can give them 2 choices. Well, you can have a snack now, or you can have dessert after dinner. So you give them a couple of options that you think are fair, and they get to make the choice. It's probably not a good idea to wait until they're in a meltdown mode to start doing this. Don't try to give your kids choices only when they're freaking out, because their brains shut down. If a child is flipped their lid, as Dan Siegel says, they're not thinking logically. We don't think logically when we flip our lids. So don't try to give choices just then. You can, if that has been your habit, is to give your kid a couple of choices. Then when they are kind of flipping their lid or starting to melt down, you can give them a couple choices because they're used to it. But start this in your process daily, as you're about to leave for school, hey, or packing lunch, hey, do you want a sandwich today or do you want a Lunchable? Give them those basic choices. Let them start making some of those. As they're going out to school, do you want me to carry your backpack or do you? But I never want to carry your backpack. Do you want to carry your backpack or do you want to carry mine and your backpack? So giving them a couple of choices that they can even help other people. Allow them to experience the result of their choices. Be careful not to step in or belittle them or tell them, I told you so, when they don't make a choice that you think they should make. Let them live with it. Let them, of course, not danger, but if it's a natural choice, they forgot their homework, let them live with that choice. If they didn't tie their shoes and you've asked them a couple of times and they trip and fall, bandage that elbow, bandage that knee, let them live with the choice they made. Again, not, I told you to tie your shoe, but, oh man, buddy, I'm so sorry you fell down. I know that hurts really bad. I wonder if you could remember to do something next time. What do you think you could do next time to keep from falling down? That is going to teach them. Again, that's kind of danger, but if it's not a dangerous situation, let them live with the choice. And avoid fixing or correcting their choice as long as they're safe. Notice and discuss their thoughts and feelings that come from their choice. So later, you can talk through some of that. So, like I said, if they fall down, talk through. How did you feel? I know that hurt. I wonder if you could do something different. Or if they're telling you about a friend that bullied them, you can talk through that with them and how they were feeling. What did it feel like when he was mean to you? And let them articulate that. And you can guess a little bit here and there, but begin to articulate that and help them articulate. And even to make a different decision for the next time. It is okay to offer a suggestion, but let it be a suggestion for the most part, not always a demand. There are going to be times that you're going to have to demand and set limits, but when it comes to their choices and emotions that are not rule breaking, let them make those decisions. And remind them that there will probably be a next time, that they could have a redo. It's really a good idea to offer a redo. Hey, bud, do you want to do a redo? You want to try that again? Hey, can you say that with respect? You're giving them a chance to go back and fix it a little bit. Obviously, we can't go back in time all the time, but we can have redos, which even as an adult can feel really great. If you are able to stop and go, I'm sorry, I totally blew that. Can I try it again? It's often a really helpful way to help your kid to learn that mistakes are not complete failure. Because if a kid starts to feel that their mistakes are failure, then they stop trying. They stop exploring. They stop adventuring. They stop dreaming and creating. And we want to keep that confidence that even though they can make a mistake, they can definitely come back from it. And if a choice that they make aligns with one of your 5 values, encourage it. Remind them, give them praise, tell them how great it was to see them making a choice that matches honesty or it matches your value of respect. Just encourage it. If a child makes a choice that has repeated negative results, then it's not time for them to make that choice. So they're not mature enough, or they are still learning a little too hard of a lesson, and just remove that option. Sometimes we want to give kids responsibility that they're not ready for. And if we see that they're failing over and over, then let's just gently remove that option and say, you know what, let's try that again later. Maybe next year you'll be more ready for it. Let's try this instead. So giving them an opportunity to do something different, even if everybody else seems to be doing it. So some ways that you can train fear into your kids, which hopefully you don't want to do, is rarely or never give them choices, age-appropriate choices. Just make all the decisions for them, direct them at all times, and harshly reprimand them. Belittle them, degrade them when they mess up. That's definitely a good way to train fear into your kids. Provide them an unpredictable schedule, something that they never know what's coming, and frequently change what's going on in life. Frequently change caregivers, frequently change the routine. That will definitely train fear into your kiddos. Have a lifestyle of frequent surprises or disappointments. We can't avoid all disappointments, but when that's the norm, it trains fear into our kids. Giving frequent criticism or using sarcasm to make sure they know how bad their behavior is, it's definitely a good way to train fear into your kiddo. Here's a good one. Tell their whole family in front of them what's going on. Tell Aunt Susie and Uncle Tom and Grandma all the things that they've done wrong right while they're listening in earshot. That'll definitely create fear and degrade confidence. Spend only time necessary with your child like drives to school and drives home, but don't do any activities with them. Don't be present for anything. And ignore or criticize their efforts. Anything they try to do, make sure to ignore it or criticize it. If they draw a picture, yeah, nice, move on. That will train some fear into your child. So clearly, I'm being sarcastic on that side, and hopefully you'll avoid those things of training fear into your child and allowing peace and confidence to be a part of their training. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the material today for managing anxiety and managing your own emotions, because we as parents have big emotions too, and it's really important that we handle our big emotions before our kids can handle theirs. So I hope that you will be able to take something from this and that it will be beneficial to you. God bless.